March the 14th, 2025. 2025 is here, baby. Somebody named Miss Robinson called. Let's give her a ringy dingy. Good morning to those who woke up today. Happy birthday to those born March 14th. And my condolences to those who did not wake up today. This is your boy, Doug.
Please hold while I try to connect you.
And I'm in Fayetteville, Georgia. On repair, and I am headed to the crib. Uh-oh. 50 gang ain't picking up. We might as well hang up. She let it ring
Hello.
She let it ring 3 times.
Excuse me. Are you talking? So who are you
I was
talking
counting
to?
my rings. 1, 2. You went to 4 rings.
So what that means?
That means you were lucky. I was about to touch it. What you talking about on the text?
Well, why didn't you text me to find out?
I did.
No, you didn't.
Look and see.
Oh, okay. Okay, well, you know, I'm working, I'm working.
I'm staring at the screen like, okay, what's the punchline?
Okay, well, look at the screen.
You gotta, I don't like looking at the screen when I'm driving.
Oh,
man, yeah. Oh, love you too, boo.
Okay, so what's going on with you? I gotta take this patient. What's up?
Nothing.
Okay,
You want to know? Want me to tell you a joke?
Yeah.
Guess what?
What?
Chicken butt.
Okay. Okay. All right. I have a patient. I'll call you later.
Bye.
I'll call you back.
Guess who died at the Big Fast?
Fox and Friends.
You mean 3.14?
3.14, yes.
Pi.
Lots of questions for you to answer.
Right.
Going back to mathematics.
I used to work at My Pie symbol.
Which is a pizza restaurant?
Pizza restaurant, no longer in business.
Yeah,
We
it's
can
not
still
like
eat pie, though, on pie, though.
And in the South, we call pie like an apple pie.
That's right.
Up here, they say, give me a piece of the pie, meaning piece of pizza.
Yeah. So weird. More like an investment term now. Give me a piece of the pie. Just want my little piece.
All right, we have incredible scenes and nearly 100 arrests inside Trump Tower as all those demonstrators support that pro-Hamas, which is a terrorist organization, that Columbia student that was arrested by ICE.
The only way to do it is put them in jail. Happy Hornacek live from the Houston Livestock Show and radio all morning long. Fox and Friends starts right now. Wow, listen to this. Oh, wow. The deadline to avoid a government shutdown is midnight tonight. The Senate Majority Leader, Chuck Schumer, is backing down on his fight to block Trump's agenda, handing the president a big win.
Aisha Hasni is live on Capitol Hill with all the details for us. Hey, Aisha.
You got dirt on Chuck
Good morning
Schumer.
to you guys. So we are expecting that vote on cloture to happen about 1:15 this afternoon. That is the most important vote, even more important than the government funding bill, because it unlocks that government funding bill. And that vote requires 8 Democrats to help Republicans out. That is why there's been so much beef on Capitol Hill. So we are still waiting to see how many Democrats who will join Senator Schumer after he made that big announcement last night. And the party, the Democratic Party, really in crisis mode right now because there are still so many Democrats in the House and in the Senate that oppose this government funding bill because it does not include that provision they wanted that would block President Trump and Elon Musk and Doge from cutting more from the federal government that they are trying to fund right now. So as I said last night, Minority Leader Chuck Schumer came out with this stunning announcement. He caved to Republicans and said that he would be supporting this short-term government funding bill, that he would help Republicans. And he said it's because a shutdown would have been so much worse for federal workers. Watch.
Epstein's list, that's what it
The
is.
Trump administration would have full authority to deem whole agencies, programs, and personnel non-essential, furloughing staff with no promise they would ever be rehired.
The change of heart came after a very tense lunch among Senate Democrats yesterday, in which I could personally hear what sounded like Senator Kirsten Gillibrand screaming at her colleagues about how a shutdown would look for them. Republicans are now taking a victory lap.
Chuck Schumer overplayed his hands, and fortunately we have Leader Thune who just outmaneuvered him. Thune said from the very beginning of this Congress that the Democrats can either do this the easy way or do it the hard way, and they have chose the hard way the entire time.
So remember I said the party is in crisis mode. The left is absolutely eviscerating Schumer right now. AOC calling his decision devastating. She says there's actually still time to convince enough Democrats in the Senate to vote against this thing.
I think there is a deep sense of outrage and betrayal. And this is not just about progressive Democrats. This is across the board, the entire party.
So guys, all of the House Democrats are actually at their retreat right now in Leesburg, Virginia. That's where we caught up with AOC. And there are reports that there are a ton of Democrats that are lobbying AOC to now primary Senator Chuck Schumer in New York. So there is a lot of angst right now ahead of this vote.
So Aisha, you should know that she's barely popular in Queens. She does not have the constituency to primary a powerful senator like Schumer. But let me ask you, so you heard the screaming, and is it your belief that she was saying we have no choice? We have to pass this because it'll give, on the premise that it'll give Donald Trump and Elon Musk more power if you shut down the government?
So that is what it sounded like to all the reporters that were standing on the other side of this door. It's a very thick Senate, door. And so it's hard to hear word for word what she was saying, but it did sound like she was telling her colleagues after a more than an hour-long meeting that this is a bad look for us, that if the government shuts down, this isn't an ordinary shutdown, that in this political climate, it's going to look very, very bad for Democrats. And this was a really tough political corner that Schumer was backed into. He was damned if he did this, damned if he didn't. And so he really did what I think a lot of people that have been on Capitol Hill for a long time, what Kevin McCarthy did, what Mitch McConnell has done, and he chose to keep the government open.
But Aisha, a lot of us knew that they were going to eventually cave, but not so quickly. What happened to cause the cave so quickly? I mean, we were anticipating a shutdown, working over the weekend, prepared for this moment.
So two things. I think Kirsten Gillibrand yelling at them probably also was a big part of it. But also, there are vulnerable Democrats that are up for re-election in 2 years. So there is some thought that this was a political calculation by the leader to sort of shield those Democrats. We're talking about people like Jon Ossoff, Raphael Warnock in Georgia. We're talking about a bunch of different people who will face tough re-elections. So they may not want to vote for this thing. And they're coming out and saying, on Twitter right now. Yeah, they're coming out and saying they're not voting for this. But again, the key vote to look for tonight is not the actual government funding bill. As a Democrat, if you're a Democrat, Lawrence, which I hate to say to you because I know you don't like that, but if you're a Democrat, you can tell your constituents, I'm a no on government funding, but a yes on the vote to cloture, to unlock the bill. That's the key. That's the one that matters. That's the one that Republicans need them on. They need 60 votes. That's the threshold, overcoming the filibuster. And they need about 6 really, because they have Fetterman and Schumer now.
Now that Schumer has backed down and says he's going to vote to keep the government funded and running, are other Democrats following suit? Do you know? Do the Republicans have the 7 Democrats that they need?
Yeah, we don't know yet. People have not publicly come out other than John Fetterman and Schumer. We believe Tim Kaine has already come out and said that he would be open to this if they got amendment votes. So that's what happens in the next couple of hours. Is the two sides will probably talk about amendments, and then that might be enough to make certain Democrats feel comfortable.
Okay.
But Chuck Schumer would not have come out and announced this if he didn't already have names.
Interesting.
Aisha, thanks so much. Great reporting as usual. So I think there's a couple of things happening. Number one, Fetterman came out and said, I will never vote for shut down the government. But this is the responsible thing to do. I would say the same thing if Mitch McConnell, it was 4 years ago, and Mitch McConnell was in the minority. Because if you shut down the government, it is a cataclysmic event that just puts more chaos into the market and other things. And what's the outcome? What is the outcome? There is nobody that would look at this and say this isn't all the Democrats' fault. You don't want to continue to fund the government that you've outlined you funded under Joe Biden.
Yeah.
We added in border funding, and we added in more military funding.
Democrats are in a tough spot because they don't want to give Donald Trump this win, but they also have preached against government shutdowns for the last, decade? And then they also voted for the CR last September. They voted for it again in December under Joe Biden. They just hate Trump so much they don't want to give him
They were boxed in on from two perspectives. A, they would have got the blame for the shutdown. But two, if they did shut down the government, they would have given the president and Elon Musk more control of what was considered a priority or not. So they were damned if they did, damned if they didn't at that point.
Yeah. And Donald Trump reportedly is invoking Wartime Alien Enemies Act of 1768. He wants to fast-track these deportations of illegals, especially the Trinidad Aragua gang. So he is pledging in the next couple of days, or in the coming days, it could even happen as early as today, I'm reading, gives the president authority to target and remove undocumented immigrants.
Yeah, it's actually 1798. We were on the air then. Then we just had started the show. And then we also used this in 1812, World War I, and World War II. So now they say that the only thing, the President Trump is extremely happy with Tom Homan, but he's frustrated we don't have millions expedited out of here. We also don't have a ton of beds to keep them while they're being processed. So we got rid of about 37,000. There's nobody at Gitmo now. They've all been jettisoned out. But in order to move quickly, he's going to enact this to be able to grab these people, throw them out quickly under the law, and not get this caught up in the courts.
Well, the president needs more money. I mean, if you've been watching some of the footage that we've been showing on the program when they're doing these raids or these operations, you're seeing 30 law enforcement officers for a couple guys. It's just not sustainable that way. They don't have the beds, they don't have the manpower, and they don't have the resources when it comes to the courts to adjudicate these. So I think this is the president's only lever that he can use right now. It's been used, as y'all talked about before, against Great Britain, Germany, Austria, Hungary, when it came to Italy, Japan as well. There's going to be some legal challenges, but when it comes to immigration, we know that the executive has broad authority when it comes to the law enforcement actions.
Yeah, Laura Ingraham had a great interview with J.D. Vance last night, and this is what he said about deportation and about border security.
What the president said on the campaign is the very first and most important thing is to secure the borders. You know, we have 20 million, maybe more illegal aliens in this country right now. We have to stop that number from growing. And by the way, in 6 weeks, we've almost accomplished complete border security. You've had places that had 1,500 illegal encounters a day. Now they're at 30 illegal encounters a day. We've cut illegal border crossings by well over 95%. And frankly, I think those numbers are going to continue to come down. So once you get operative control of the border, now you have to ramp up deportations. And Laura, this is another area where Joe Biden has left us with a hole that we have to dig out of. You have immigration detention facilities that were underfunded. You have ICE, which does most of the actual deportations, that was radically underfunded, really sort of in some ways destroyed by the Biden administration. We're building that capacity up. I do think that you're going to see those deportation numbers rise.
I think a couple of things. ICE was starved intentionally under President Biden. They were looked at as the bad guy. So we're going to starve them. We'll take back the windbreakers. You're not going to be able to work. So now they're asked to put everything on hyperspeed. Really? So now we got to get all the guys and women, and then we start doing these dangerous raids. It's really dangerous in sanctuary cities. That's right. So that's when Governor Hochul today comes to the White House. The president says, I need you to build a pipeline if you want your congestion pricing back. I also hope he just, bangs it, tries to get through her head that you're putting people in danger by having the sanctuary city status. Give Mayor Adams some maneuverability. Give NYPD some maneuverability to be able to work, even if the city council is going to push back, to work to put down the numbers and start taking these people out, because we know they're in the hotels, we know they're in a lot of these facilities, we know where they are, but the NYPD is not allowed to cooperate with ICE, and that's he should get a pound of flesh from that conversation.
Especially
today.
these criminals. I mean, we had Eric Adams on the Curvy Couch, and he said, look, we are a sanctuary city. He said he didn't mind giving social services like emergency services, hospital services to people who were here illegally, who were paying taxes. He said, however, the problem is with these sanctuary cities, they even protect the criminals. So when ICE wants to go in and arrest these criminals, the Trinidad Aragua people who are living here, Mayor Adams said our city council is so liberal, they won't even allow them to be picked up.
I disagree with him on the whole thing.
I know
We should
you
give
do.
people illegal immigrants services, because it just brings more. 13 minutes now after the hour. Let's change gears. It's a Fox News alert. At least 5 people are dead, including an infant, after a crash in Austin, Texas, involving 17 vehicles on I-35.
Jessica Rivera is from our affiliate there in Austin. She joins us live on the scene. Jessica, what's the latest?
Hi, good morning, you guys. Yeah, it's been a tragic morning. As you just mentioned, 17 people and 17 vehicles, including a semi-truck, were involved in this accident. Thankfully, all those that were involved have been transported to a local hospital. This is a live look at what we're looking at right now. Tow trucks have just arrived, but there's not a lot of movement yet so far. We were told that the initial call was made at 11:20 p.m. When crews arrived on scene, they upgraded the accident to a second alarm rescue. 5 people, including a child and an infant, were pronounced deceased on scene. The accident has stretched over 500 feet. 11 people were transported to local hospitals, 2 adults to St. David's Round Rock with life-threatening injuries, 3 adults to Del Seaton, 2 with life-threatening injuries, 1 with minor injuries. 3 children were transported to Del Children's Hospital, 1 with potentially life-threatening injuries, 2 with minor injuries, 3 adults to Seton Medical Center with minor injuries, and 1 adult refused transport. Crews were able to transport the patients with serious injuries within 40 minutes. Crews worked to extract 3 patients that were pinned in their vehicles and then assisted Austin EMS with treatment of those patients. At this time, there is no reports of hazardous oil spill in the areas. Crews are working on clearing out the scene. The Palmer and Howard Lane exits and service road lanes have been closed off as crews are working on this investigation. Police department is asking those that are who are commuting this morning to avoid the area and to find alternative routes. This week is starting to become a spring break for many school districts in Central Texas. And let this be a reminder for those who are driving out of town to please be safe on the roadways. We're going to be here all morning giving you live updates on I-35's major delays this morning. For now, reporting live in North Austin, I'm Jessica Rivera. Back to you guys in the studio.
Hey, Jessica, real quick question for you. I've traveled this highway a lot, especially growing up. There's always construction there. Was this a construction zone?
Yes, there is major construction in this area. Service roads also have been 1 lane as well. So, but on the highway I-35, there's working on construction on expanding it, and there has been major issues this morning and a lot of mornings here as well.
All right, Jessica, thank you.
So tragic.
All right, 15 minutes now after the hour. Carly Shimkus, you're down from the 12th floor.
I am down from 12 to 1. Good morning to you guys. Got the latest news out of the Dominican Republic. Interpol issuing a global alert in the search for the University of Pittsburgh student who vanished in the Dominican Republic last week. Sadiq Shekhnaki was on spring break with her friends and was last seen walking to the beach. And now her disappearance is being investigated as possible foul play. The Attorney General's office of the Dominican Republic saying, quote, the prosecution, which is conducting multiple investigative procedures that extend beyond a possible accidental event, is keeping the course of the proceedings confidential. And today is the day the SpaceX Crew 10 mission is set to launch for the International Space Station on a mission to bring back the 2 astronauts who have been stuck in space for 9 months. The Falcon 9 rocket is expected to take off around 7 p.m. from the Kennedy Space Center in Florida. The crew is expected to dock late tomorrow night and will begin the process of bringing home Sonny Williams and Butch Wilmore. They are expected to begin their journey back to Earth no earlier than next Wednesday. And did you see this? This photo of a McDonald's play place in Tennessee is going viral on social media. It just shows 2 chairs in front of 2 screens in the corner of the fast food restaurant. The original poster called it heartbreaking, but McDonald's says this location does not represent the company's full play place experience.
You have a message.
I ask you, why is this trending? I don't get it.
Because instead of having, remember when we were growing up, we had the big playground, and now they have two screens, the ball pit, where the kids can go and play video games.
He still looks confused. Look at him.
No,
it's screens. They replace playing.
We're trying to get kids off screens, and then McDonald's is encouraging it.
This particular McDonald's,
Right.
but McDonald's says this.
We
is
still
just a
love
one-off.
McDonald's, but maybe they'll get rid of that and put a playground in like we used to have. And a Ronald
rid of the
McDonald
screen.
sitting on a bench. Remember you'd go sit on Ronald McDonald's lap when he was the fake guy was sitting on the bench?
Yeah.
I don't. He had his legs crossed.
I don't actually remember that, Ainsley.
Oh my gosh, we talked about it. All of our producers remember it. Do y'all remember it?
I remember.
Yeah, Chris remembers it. You remember it.
Ronald
We have to
McDonald
get you
was
a
in the
picture.
McDonald's?
I'll show you a picture.
Oh.
On a bench.
Yeah.
And you would sit next to it.
You just sit.
Yeah.
I honestly think the picture,
It looks very clean and nice.
It's an accurate depiction of our kids today. They're not on the slides. They're in front of the screen.
But I will say, we're waking up. We had that slow boil, the frog in the water. The water definitely got hotter. The frog ends up blowing up. Before the frog blew up, we're waking up. People are putting down their screens. I think there's a sense of guilt when you pick up a phone now in a crowd. I think when you have your kid out with an iPad, they feel a little self-conscious.
Look, go to Central Park this afternoon, or especially when it gets a little warmer. We have tons of playground. This one sets. It's always
Ainsley,
packed
why
with
does
kids.
Brian always do that? The whole point of an analogy is to make
you feel
it
better.
clear
Right.
for the people, and I leave more confused every time. You're right. Our stage
I'm just
manager,
trying to
Chris,
say,
he's confused.
we didn't know what was happening. Steve Jobs led us into that boiling water,
Tom is in my
and
ear,
it got
he goes,
really hot. And all of a sudden, we're trying to save our kids from the boiling water, but a lot of times the frog stays in too long and explodes.
So Toba's in my ear. He goes, it makes sense to Brian.
Only him.
Yeah, I am not that Toba.
It is 19 minutes after the top of the hour. American students can barely read and do math. Okay, maybe we're on our screens too much. And now Democrats are trying to stop Trump from revolutionizing the education system.
Yeah, $41 billion in New York City for education, and they need more money. Plus, from taking over campus buildings to taking over Trump Tower, when will the pro-Palestinian
Anti-Israel protesters arrested for taking over the lobby of Trump Tower, showing their support for the Columbia Palestinian activists detained by ICE. But that's not stopping President Trump's crackdown. Last night, DHS agents searched 2 Columbia residents as the school finally issued multi-year suspensions and expulsions and temporarily pulled degrees after losing $400 million in funding last week. Pro-Israel activist Aliza Licht is the granddaughter of 4 Holocaust survivors, and she joins us now. Hey, Aliza, great to see you again.
Great to see you too, Ainsley.
What's your reaction when you see hundreds of protesters in Trump Tower fighting to save this guy who's affiliated with Hamas?
Where are the protests for Idan Alexander, an American Israeli who's been held in Gaza since October 7th? Where are the protests for Lake and Riley?
Good point. Good point. And they claim to be a Jewish group.
So they're called Jewish Voice for Peace, but actually their admin is based in Lebanon. And one of their founders or leaders over in 2023 actually tweeted from the wrong account, Hamas aligned, BDS aligned. There's no Jewishness about this group.
So they're using that just to camouflage their real mission.
They hijack the Jewish identity. And yes, are there radicals in there who are Jewish? Yes, but overall, that group is not a Jewish group.
Yeah, what was your reaction when you saw the Senate Judiciary Democrats, their post on X that said free Mahmoud Khalil?
I think they've lost the plot. I think they have completely lost the plot, and it's almost like a cult at this point. Because, quite frankly, I have liberal friends who want Mahmoud Khalil out. So I don't think that the Democrats in charge actually know what their constituents want anymore.
Yeah, why do you think they were searching those two residents at Columbia?
Because I think they have a lot more information than we know. But also, why was the temporary president, Katrina Armstrong of Columbia, sending out an email saying, I'm so heartbroken that DHS has come to search these rooms? You're heartbroken?
Mm-hmm.
This is after the $400 million fine?
Mm-hmm.
They don't want to even be putting out those
Isn't it interesting that Columbia just lost $400 million in funding, and now they're talking about suspending and expulsions and revoking degrees over occupying Hamilton Hall that happened a long time ago?
Yeah, I think it was August, right? I mean, yes, because they wouldn't have done it, because they don't agree. They want this to happen on Columbia's campus. I mean, the professors themselves are involved. So they're just doing it because the Trump administration has cracked down. But if you're going to write that you're heartbroken that DHS has visited, you're clearly not aligned. And this is supporting terrorism. And I think the problem also, Ainsley, is this is not a free speech issue. This is action. This is literally I'm not a lawyer, but his green card can be revoked simply because he's aligning with Hamas. Their propaganda they handed out was Hamas
This is
logos.
not peaceful protesting. They're storming into classrooms. They're handing out pamphlets, anti-Israel, anti-Semitic pamphlets to the students.
Correct.
While they're trying to learn about Israel in that one class.
Correct. And the Democrats are screaming about freeing this guy and his safety on campus. What about the Jewish students on Columbia's campus? Do they not deserve to have civil rights?
Have you talked to people? There was a guest on Fox and Friends First yesterday. It was so interesting. He helps people get into college. He tells Columbia off their list, and there was one student who had already done early decision or early whatever it's called now, where you can't change your mind, and he's trying to get out of it now because the labs at Columbia are losing funding. They're worried they're losing funding because Donald Trump's taking it away because of what's happening, and now that student was going there for those labs, for that science class, and he's not sure he's going to be able to get that education now.
Well, by the way, people that I know who actually attend there, their professors start class with Free Palestine and announce to everybody how much they hate America. So this is what our Ivy League schools are teaching. I would recommend no one go there.
Well, when you look at those videos of what's happening at Columbia, my daughter's not going into a crowd like that. I would be so scared of her safety.
Yes, and the students are scared. I mean, I have a friend who was literally locked in her dorm room, scared to come out. On the day of that bomb threat, they were told to shelter in place. They can't even get to class because they're blocking the entrances to class.
It's a shame. Eliza, so good to see you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
All right, let's check in with our senior meteorologist, Janice Dean, for our Fox weather forecast. Hey, Janice.
Joins us now with the details. Janley, here we go again.
Right. Hey, Brian. So the Boeing jet, it was bound for Dallas-Fort Worth International Airport after taking off from Colorado Springs. But after crew members reported engine vibrations, the plane made an emergency landing in Denver. But shortly after, the engine caught fire, forcing dozens of passengers down emergency slides and onto the plane's wings. Well, thankfully, all 172 passengers and 6 crew members made it off the plane. 12 passengers, though, were taken to the hospital with minor injuries.
Someone started to yell that there was a fire outside in the engine. Everybody kind of started panicking, got up, started running to the back. The cabin started filling with smoke, looked outside, couldn't see anything because it was white. And then they opened the doors and we went out, but it felt like a long time before we could get, I mean, the cabin was filling with smoke, so it was a little nerve-wracking. I feel lucky that it wasn't in the air and it happened when we were on the ground.
And American Airlines releasing this statement, quote,
We thank our crew members, Denver team, and first responders for their quick and decisive action with the safety of everyone on board and on the ground as the priority. Now, the cause of the blaze is still not clear. The FAA is investigating. Lawrence, over to you.
This is happening a lot, or maybe we're just hearing about it more. It is scary. Thanks, Chandler. So this morning, 21 Democratic-led states suing the Trump administration over the president's push to dismantle the Department of Education. That includes New Jersey, where Attorney General Matt Platkin declares, quote, "We will always protect students in New Jersey and the world-class education they deserve." Meanwhile, barely 30% of America's young students can even read that tweet, as our nation's report card highlights the failing public education and its impact on our kids. Jack Ciavarelli is running as the GOP's candidate for governor in New Jersey, joins us now. Jack, thanks so much for joining the program.
Thanks for having me, Lawrence.
From a state perspective, it doesn't seem like there is a focus right now on improving the education of our New Jersey kids. I guess you could say that for all across the country, though, right?
Lawrence, because Phil Murphy and the Trenton Democrats are owned by the teachers union, they shut down schools for 2 years. The learning loss has been significant, and we need to put in place a high-impact curriculum. That's where the money should be spent. Instead, Phil Murphy is giving the most politically motivated attorney general in the country money to sue the Trump administration. It's pretty disgusting and infuriating.
Jack, I know you're running for governor, so there's a lot of conversation about school choice, giving parents and students options. Is that something you would support if you were elected governor?
100%. When 80% of the 8th graders in a place like Newark are not on grade level for reading, writing, and math, I say we need school choice. So it's time for charters and a voucher program along the lines of what was implemented in Florida within the last 18 months.
So tell me, is New Jersey turning purple? Would you have a shot?
It's always been a purple state with a tint of red, Lawrence. Going into 2021, we had won 6 of the last 10 governor races. We're going 7 for 12. We're going to win this year. If you look at what's happening to voter registrations over the last 3.5 years, you see a very dramatic trend.
Inside Trump Tower after protesters gathered at the president's iconic Manhattan skyscraper.
And it's bringing back the corporate headquarters so that all those corporate tax and the windfall comes.
Medicaid, it already had clarified that it didn't affect Social Security or Medicare, but the Medicaid website portal is experiencing an outage. And the White House press secretary this afternoon was not able to say whether Medicaid would be affected or not. So let's just walk through this, because obviously there's confusion. Is this pause going to affect Medicaid?
It does not affect any service that the government is required to provide. It does not affect any entitlement, does not affect any service to citizens, does not affect any individual benefit, any public assistance program, or anything of that nature.
Okay, so that's
very glad for the chance to explain what's going on here. In fact, I can actually give you some backstory I think you'd find very useful, Jake. So we found after the president had issued a pause on funding to NGOs that were settling illegal immigrants, we found that bureaucrats at HHS were trying to funnel billions more dollars to those resettlement agencies and try to get around the executive order. It became clear that bureaucrats were still trying to funnel unapproved discretionary grants of funds to their pet projects. So OMB, led by Russ Vought, felt it was necessary to protect taxpayer resources to issue clearer guidance establishing for these discretionary grants of funding that are not directed by Congress, that they go through a political approval process at the agency.
So let's get into that, because a number of government-funded organizations, so these are organizations like Meals on Wheels, right? Their job, their mission, it's a private organization. They get grants from the federal government. They feed seniors. Meals on Wheels is currently in the dark. They don't know, does this order affect us? Does this mean we're not going to have any more funding coming in? They feed like 2 million seniors. So I'm just wondering, first of all, why a pause? An investigation, sure, I get that. Auditing, sure. Why a pause? And what about
Jake? Once you spend money, you can't get it back. So, in other words, if you don't put federal programs under review that are wasteful or harmful to taxpayers, and then people hit send, you wouldn't believe the payments we've had to pause over the last few days with bureaucrats trying to funnel money out of the door. Funnel money to the World Health Organization, funnel money to resettlement organizations, funnel money to foreign countries. And so, of course, you have to put a pause on these discretionary grants of funding and have a political review process. In other words, there are people that are accountable to the taxpayer to review. It does not include, the review process does not include any public benefit program. So you mentioned Meals on Wheels. That is a public benefit program. OMB has been clear about this. Jake, we have to get control over this government. You understand this point about NGOs, non-governmental organizations. Joe Biden gave just one NGO responsible for resettling illegal aliens $3 billion, with the B, $3 billion. President Trump, what he said during the swamp, he meant it. And yes, so those kinds of spending programs are going to be put under review.
Okay, I don't think anybody's taking issue with if you find money that is being dispersed in an inappropriate way, halting it. I think what the confusion is this seemed to a lot of groups and a lot of states, Republicans, Democrats, Independents, like a very sweeping order, and there's confusion. I just want to make sure I understand. So anybody out there that provides school lunches, anybody out there?
Yeah, there's zero impact on public benefit programs, full stop, as OMB has made clear. And I want to really drill down on this, Jake, because it's so important. There's 2 million employees in the federal government. Overwhelmingly, the career federal service in this country is far left wing. I don't know that to be a fact.
Well,
I'll give you a great example. We looked at USAID as an example. That's 98% of the workforce either donated to Kamala Harris or another left-wing candidate, just as an example.
Okay, but let me just think an entire workforce is having a...
Whoa. Did you just say that saying someone voted for Kamala Harris is demonizing them?
No, so according to your suggestion is that there's a bias.
No, but you used the word demonizing. You just said that I'm demonizing somebody by saying they voted for Kamala Harris.
Let's get back on track.
But I am on track. Okay. Let me stay on track. What I'm saying to you is this. There are 2 million employees in the federal government.
Right.
They're overwhelmingly left of center. The
Again,
American people, I gotta finish the sentence.
Okay.
I gotta finish the sentence. The American people voted for dramatic change implemented by Donald Trump. So it is essential for him to get control of government, to establish a whole of government process for Donald Trump's political appointees to review discretionary grants of spending for pet projects that are not directed by Congress. In other words, these are pots of money where Congress hasn't said how to spend it or where to spend it. This might be something like saying, I want to build a $500 million fountain in the courtyard of the Department of Commerce. This might be something like saying, I want to fund gender studies in Afghanistan. There has to be political control and review. I can't help it if left-wing media outlets published a fake news story that caused confusion. If you read the OMB guidance memo, it is, well, if you read the OMB guidance memo,
I don't know what
it's as clear as day.
We just talked to Congressman Don Bacon, a Republican, a Trump supporter. We just interviewed him. He said that there was a lot of confusion. He said that the executive order
created by the media, Jake. The OMB guidance memo, if you read it, is as clear as day.
It's pretty
my point is
and confusingly written.
I can't.
Parts of it are about DEI. Parts of it are all disbursement. It is.
Yeah, DEI suspended. That is correct.
Right. No, I'm just saying, like, it's kind of all over the map, and there is confusion, and it's not just liberal media.
Jake, tell me.
Republican Senator Lisa Murkowski said.
You're not understanding what I'm saying.
But
I'm saying that
I want you to address this.
I will, but I'm saying that a false story was put out that people responded to. It's unfortunate that people put out a false story. That's all I'm saying, Jake.
Okay. Republican Senator Lisa Murkowski said, quote, nobody really knows how long, unquote, this review of these federal funds is going to last. And she said it's, quote, been a big challenge, unquote, to get answers from the Trump administration. So here's an opportunity. How long is this review going to take? And when does the federal funding for these programs resume?
Well, in the original executive order that addressed NGOs, foreign aid, and other grants, that was a 90-day review process, as you know, Jake. But again, more fundamentally, I think we're missing the big point here. Do you believe, does anyone believe, that an unaccountable, career-tenured bureaucrat should be able to approve vast sums of money for the projects that they personally agree with, that no accountable employee in the federal government has reviewed?
I'm literally asking about Meals on Wheels. I mean, you know.
We are, but Jake, yes, Jake, you do know what I'm talking about. I'm telling you, as the memo says, in black and white letters, no financial benefit programs to Americans are affected. No individual assistance programs are affected. It's there in black and white.
Yeah.
We always knew that the media was going to spin up fake stories to try to create controversy, to try to create scandal. I'm not saying you, Jake. I would never say you. I'm not saying you.
We invited you on to clarify, Stephen, and we just...
And I'm here.
Right, I know, and I appreciate it. And I want to turn to immigration in 1 second, but I'm just saying, Republican Congressman Don Bacon was hearing from constituents. We have no idea where the constituents were getting their information from, but I will say, last night, when people started noticing this order, people were upset based on the executive order. I was hearing from them directly.
The executive order, Jake, the executive order was issued 7 days ago.
I understand that, but it was going when the word got out.
This is an OMB guidance document.
Right, exactly. And when that went out, people got it, and you heard Congressman Don Bacon saying he was worried. Yes. Now he's not, but he was worried that before school programs and after school programs in Nebraska were going to be affected.
I'm sorry.
But you've clarified
I'm sorry that the media has falsly reported on this story.
I don't know what you're talking about in terms of false reports. It's a broadly written executive order, and there's...
No, you're conflating two different things.
Stephen,
an executive order was issued a week ago. There were some bureaucrats in the federal government who tried to push out money, billions of dollars, for wicked and pernicious purposes that had to be frozen. A guidance memo was written. OMB guidance memos are by their nature complicated to read because this involves the federal budget. The choice here is simple. It is very simple, and I want to state it clearly.
Okay.
Either Donald Trump gets political control over this government and ends the waste, abuse, and fraud on the American people, or we let bureaucrats autopilot federal spending. If we hadn't stepped in, then billions more dollars, as an example, would have gone to left-wing NGOs that fund and resettle illegal aliens and are complicit, in many cases, in facilitating child trafficking.
Okay,
so
obviously...
administration will never, ever apologize for defending the American people.
Obviously, nobody's in favor of child trafficking. Let's move on to immigration, because obviously there's been a lot of action when it comes to going after undocumented migrants, undocumented immigrants in this country. Sources say that ICE has been directed to ramp up arrests to at least 75 per field office per day. If every field office hits that quota or that number, that goal, that would be 1,875 undocumented immigrants arrested every day. Now, the Washington Post reports that President Trump has been disappointed with the numbers so far. I don't know if that's true. You will tell me if it is. What is the priority, though, when it comes to these deportations? Is the initial goal, as we had been told by Trump allies after the election, to go after those first, as a priority, to go after those who have committed violent crimes and are part of violent gangs? Or is it, we're just going to go after anybody who is in this country illegally, we're not going to prioritize?
Well, yes, we are going to prioritize. So first of all, the numbers you cited are a floor, not a ceiling, very importantly. They're a floor. The goal is to arrest at least that many, but hopefully many more. And the Department of Justice is going to be closely involved in providing the manpower to help achieve those objectives as laid out in the President's executive order. Yes, ICE is absolutely prioritizing terrorist, public safety threats, and national security threats. It is also true that Joe Biden admitted some unknowably large number of millions of illegal immigrants into this country, all of whom are ineligible for asylum, ineligible for any form of immigration relief, are ineligible to remain in the country. So if you look at public polling on this issue, about 70% of Americans think that everybody that Joe Biden let in should be removed. About 80% of Americans agree that all criminal aliens should be removed. That's the baseline of public opinion support.
So you are going to prioritize the violent criminals, though. That's the thing.
Yes, but we're not going to immunize everybody that Joe Biden let in. I mean, let me ask you a hypothetical, and you can treat it as a rhetorical question, not answer it if you don't want to, Jake.
I appreciate it.
Let's say that an illegal alien arrived in the last 3 months of the Biden administration from, say, Peru. He was released. He failed to appear in immigration court. He was issued a final removal order. So showed up, got released, didn't appear, ordered deported. Been here for 6 months. Is it your position, Jake, that guy should get to stay till the end of his life? I mean, what kind of country can run that way?
Okay.
I mean, no country in the world runs that way.
So let me ask you, President Trump has left the door open to invoking the Insurrection Act, which would allow him to use military forces, U.S. military forces, inside the United States for law enforcement. What would that look like? Are we going to see U.S. troops in American cities arresting undocumented immigrants? Tell us what this is about.
So the Insurrection Act in this context mostly applies to considerations related to the border and the cartel threat. So we've already seen 2 shooting incidences in the last 2 days of suspected cartel violence against Border Patrol agents. President Trump's clampdown and closure of the southern border has disrupted the flow of funds to the most ruthless and dangerous organizations on planet Earth, like the Sinaloa cartel, like the Mexican mafia. These are organizations that are being designated as foreign terrorist organizations, and the president has set the national objective of eradicating their physical presence on U.S. soil. So you should understand considerations about the Insurrection Act in that context.
So
with respect to interior enforcement,
yes,
that's where a program known as 287G comes into play that you're probably familiar with. And that's where we're going to be enrolling state police, local sheriffs, and law enforcement across the nation into federal immigration programs. And that's how we're going to significantly increase the arrest numbers.
But is the Insurrection Act going to possibly be used to use the U.S. military to go after undocumented immigrants in American cities and American towns? Is the door open for that?
Right now, the Insurrection Act, which is still being considered based on operational needs on the southern border, so no decision has been made, is specifically in the context of countering that cartel threat. In the interior, it's going to be about enrolling state and local law enforcement to massively increase the supply of guns and badges to conduct these immigration raids.
All right, so you're not ruling it out, but that's not the plan right now. Let me ask you a question about, because one of the reasons that President Trump got elected, according to President Trump in an interview, I think it was with Kristen Welker of NBC, was because of grocery prices. Not the only reason, but a reason, high prices, inflation, especially at the grocery. The Department of Agriculture says that between 2020 and 2022, 42% of crop workers were undocumented immigrants. And in many cases, as you know, these migrants do jobs many Americans do not want to do. So how does President Trump make sure that the effort to deport people who are not in this country legally doesn't end up hurting Americans who want safe borders, absolutely, but also don't want to see even more higher prices in groceries.
Well, I mean, I'm sure it's not your position, Jake, you're just asking the question, that we should supply America's food with exploitative illegal alien labor. I obviously don't think that's what you're implying. Only 1% of alien workers in the entire country work in agriculture. The top destination for illegal aliens are large cities like New York, like Los Angeles, and small industrial towns, of course, all across the heartland, as we've seen with the Biden floods. Mm-hmm. None of those illegal aliens are doing farm work. Those 30,000 illegal aliens that Joe Biden dumped into Springfield.
I'm talking about the ones that are.
But I'm explaining this. It's important to understand.
No, you're kind of changing the subject. I mean, I'm talking about the ones.
I will give me 30 minutes. I'll go as deep as you want to this. I'm explaining to you and your audience.
I'm talking about the ones that work in the agriculture industry.
I'm
you
explaining
can come back
to you
and we
your
can
audience.
talk about the ones in the cities. I swear.
I'll do the whole answer. The illegal aliens that Joe Biden brought into our country are not full stop doing farm work. They are not. The illegal aliens he brought in from Venezuela, from Haiti, from Nicaragua, they are not doing farm work. They're in our cities collecting welfare. As for the farmers, there is a guest worker program that President Trump supports. Over time as well, we will transition into automation, so we'll never have to have this conversation ever again. But there's no universe in which this nation is going to allow the previous president to flood our nation with millions and millions of illegal aliens who just get to stay here. And we are especially not going to allow a subset of those illegal aliens to rape and murder our citizens. So we are going to unapologetically enforce our immigration laws. And as I'm sure you will celebrate, we are going to unleash the power and might of the U.S. government to eradicate the presence of transnational threats on our soil.
Wow, listen to this. The deadline to avoid a government shutdown is midnight tonight.
The Senate Majority Leader, Chuck Schumer, is backing down on his fight to block Trump's agenda, handing the president a big win.
Aisha Hasni is live on Capitol Hill with all the details for us. Hey, Aisha.
Hey, good morning to you guys. So we are expecting that vote on cloture to happen about 1:15 this afternoon. That is the most important vote, even more important than the government funding bill, because it unlocks that government funding bill. And that vote requires 8 Democrats to help Republicans out. That is why there's been so much beef on Capitol Hill. So we are still waiting to see how many Democrats who will join Senator Schumer after he made that big announcement last night. And the Democratic Party, really in crisis mode right now, because there are still so many Democrats in the House and in the Senate that oppose this government funding bill because it does not include that provision they wanted that would block President Trump and Elon Musk and Doge from cutting more from the federal government that they are trying to fund right now. So as I said last night, Minority Leader Chuck Schumer came out with this stunning announcement. He caved to Republicans and said that he would be supporting this short-term government funding bill, that he would help Republicans. And he said it's because a shutdown would have been so much worse for federal workers. Watch.
The Trump administration would have full authority to deem whole agencies, programs, and personnel non-essential, furloughing staff with no promise they would ever be rehired.
The change of heart came after a very tense lunch among Senate Democrats yesterday, in which I could personally hear what sounded like Senator Kirsten Gillibrand screaming at her colleagues about how a shutdown would look for them. Republicans are now taking a victory lap.
Chuck Schumer overplayed his hands, and fortunately we have Leader Thune who just outmaneuvered him. Thune said from the very beginning of this Congress that the Democrats can either do this the easy way or do it the hard way, and they have chose the hard way the entire time.
So remember I said the party is in crisis mode. The left is absolutely eviscerating Schumer right now. AOC calling his decision devastating. She says there's actually still time to convince enough Democrats in the Senate to vote against this thing.
I think there is a deep sense of outrage and betrayal. And this is not just about progressive Democrats. This is across the board.
but boy, it's a tough thing to do. You have to do it carefully.
I think Biden's industrialization strategy was to industrialize more government. I mean, a lot of jobs created government during Biden.
America brought back a chips industry in 18 months.
And what was the announcement this week? That a chips maker from Taiwan is opening up a massive operation in Arizona.
What's happening, everybody? Scott Jennings recently debated. Let's go.
I actually don't think he's looking for the long term. I think tariffs need to be used in a really, really surgical way to create space for industry to happen in the U.S., but that requires an industrial strategy. We haven't seen any coherent industrial strategy from this administration yet. Now, you know, like him or not, Biden had an industrial strategy. It's not just about tariffs. You've got to convince business, okay, what's the competitive strategy here? How are we going to train workers? How are we going to work with allies? You have to build capacity. Is Europe going to want to be in supply chain alliances with us? Maybe not, because, you know, we're talking about slapping tariffs on Europe too. I just don't buy it over the long haul. I'm for reindustrialization, but boy, it's a tough thing to do. You have to do it carefully.
I think Biden's industrialization strategy was to industrialize more government. I mean, a lot of jobs created government during Biden.
America brought back a chips industry in 18 months.
And what was the announcement this week? That a chips maker from Taiwan is opening up a massive operation in Arizona. What was the auto industry announcement this week? That Honda is putting a plant in Indiana. $1.7 trillion already in announcements from this administration on investing in the U.S. economy. I agree with you, what you said earlier. Reindustrializing, juicing American manufacturing, it is a worthy goal, and that is the mission of the tariff plan. He strongly believes in tariffs, and if they're slapped on over a long period of time, we'll see if he's right.
I guess
but the governor,
it's one tool.
The governor is exactly right
You
about
guys are defending a tariff strategy that's actually not being put in place.
It's not a strategy.
The tariff strategy that you're describing is Trump saying, I believe in tariffs, carte blanche, let's just put them on there. But what he's actually doing is saying tariffs one day, no tariffs the next day. Tariffs one day, no tariffs the next day.
He's trying
if he really believed in what you are saying, he would just stick with his strategy, and he's not doing it.
He's trying to find the sweet spot with countries and industries. And he said today there'll be no more extensions past April.
I just have to say, I'm not even seeing that happening. I mean, he didn't say, okay, we're going to take tariffs off China and Mexico for these specific things. He said, we're going to just do another month.
Yeah, it's a haphazard approach. I want to say that I think there's a lot of things at this table that people agree with. I don't want fentanyl in this country. I want it to be stopped. I don't take it lightly if one person dies from it or another person dies from it if it comes out from the country. But I also think that when you are applying and you're looking at the totality of circumstances, you can't just swing a pendulum back and forth with the American economy.
I can see why Trump's trade strategy could be confusing to the average American, and especially liberals, Democrats. I mean, over the last 4 years, all anyone's ever known is our leadership just denying that the economy is doing shitty, telling you on paper it's doing better every once in a while, and then just kind of pray, keep your fingers crossed that it all works itself out. Do you ever remember hearing about a plan from the prior administration over the last 4 years to address the economy? I do remember a lot of spending and a lot of government jobs created. I'll get back to the video because Scott starts spitting here in a little bit, but one of them said tariffs one day, no tariffs the next. And he doesn't have a strategy around that. Donald Trump can be very serious about tariffs and also use them as a negotiation tool. When Mexico, Canada, even China, when they capitulate to some of the requests the Trump administration is asking for, that's in the best interest of our country, he can pull them all together if he wants to. Donald Trump's thinking long term. You're just looking at what might happen right now that I can complain about. He's been there for a month and a half. Give it a moment. I'll let Scott take it from here.
I understand you all are saying it's a strategy, but what it feels like, and we talked a lot about feelings before November 5th, that the people felt like the economy wasn't good, even though the numbers said it was good. What we're saying is that people are feeling like the economy still isn't good, and the numbers are not good because the Dow is going down. Because you slap a tariff on in 1 hour and 18 hours it's later. That feels unstable. It doesn't feel like a strategy. I hear you. You all think there's something there, but I think in short order, the American people are going to say, and to just callously say, people are going to lose their jobs.
I didn't ever hear that before November 5th. People are going to lose their jobs. Americans, are you okay with losing your jobs? You be the judge.
Bill Clinton said it really loud in the early 90s when he said we're going to get rid of 13% of the workforce.
I was 8 years old, so I can't really say
that's a
much
reality.
about that, but I'm talking about now that I'm an adult.
Let me just play what Republicans in Congress are hearing from their districts and what they're saying about all of this.
Almost every industry in Kentucky has come to me and said it will hurt our industry and push up prices of homes, cars, and so I'm going to continue to argue against tariff.
Should he back off of it if it starts to hurt constituents?
When we start losing, you back off. You know, there's such a thing as a strategic retreat. At the end of the day, I think we have more leverage than any other nation, but we got to be smart, and we don't have all the leverage.
Maybe Tom Tillis is right. This was a retreat. I mean, he backed off. He absolutely backed off.
There is no question that inside the Republican Party, there is some resistance to this. I mean, that's just a fact. And there are issues, particularly on trade issues, where Trump is not an orthodox conservative. He didn't run on it. He has been very open about it. Some of the party supports him, some don't. In my home state of Kentucky, both Mitch McConnell and Rand Paul, not often aligned on issues, are both against it. You hear this from some corners of the party, but Donald Trump believes in this. And I suspect there is going to be some tariff strategy over the entire first term. And
but Scott, I hear what you're saying Trump believes in, but do you think it's a good idea?
Right. Yeah, that's my question.
I trust the president to deal with Canada and Mexico.
Okay, but do you
on
think
the
it's a
issues
good
that he thinks
idea
are
to
important?
slap 25% tariffs on Canada and Mexico and then take them off and then put them back on and take them
And
off?
what happens in a year? What happens in a year? I'm curious
Everybody yell at me, then I'll
I'm
answer.
not yelling at you. Cut it out. Don't do that to me.
Everybody go, and then I'll answer one at a
Don't do
time.
it, guys. Don't do it. Don't do it. As your colleague and friend that we have these debates because we actually care about this country, I am curious. Okay, if this is the strategy, but we've been saying it's only 40 days. Well, what happens when it's 40 months? Like, what happens when the strategy hasn't paid off? When is the intervention plan?
That's your prediction. Well, the interventions in American politics are elections. I mean,
So the fact that the economy is going through a rough patch, that's due to Trump's tariffs? Is that what you're saying? Okay, I just want to make sure. So what was the excuse for the last 4 years why the economy was doing so terrible? I'm just kidding. I know the answer. Incompetence and laziness. So the one lady said, well, what happens after, I don't know if she said 4 months or 40 months or a year or whatever she said, when Scott correctly pointed out that it's been a month and a half. Well, here's the deal. If it's going bad, we'll lose the midterms, which will be disastrous to the remainder of Donald Trump's presidency and everything he wants to get done and all the reasons we voted him into office. So don't for a second think that Donald Trump doesn't understand that the stakes are extremely high. He knows that better than anyone. He's doing what he believes is in the best interest of the American people. So he's using tariffs the way he is because he believes it will strengthen the U.S. economy and save our country money. Again, make no mistake, he knows what's riding on this. So saying that he's being haphazard is ridiculous. He's being very calculated and believes this is what's best for the country. We shall see. Let's wrap it up.
This whole economic strategy is not just tariffs. You've got the Congress working on the reconciliation package. You are going to try to see some cuts in federal spending, make permanent the tax cuts, changes in energy policy. In his mind, it all works together. And you know when you get a report card? At the next election.
Can I ask you, Ronna, really tomorrow could be a very big, maybe a very bad day economically. What are the markets expecting?
Downturn for sure. I mean, the jobs cuts, the sense that consumer spending is buttoning up, the sense that businesses, because of the uncertainty, are pulling back. You know, I agree with what's been said about fentanyl, but let's put things in perspective. 0.2% of fentanyl coming across Canada. Guess what does come across Canada? Lumber, energy. I spoke to a home builder that said, you know, we want to put a stop on building right now. We're going to pull back at a time when we have a housing shortage because we don't know what the lumber costs are going to be. Those are the kinds of things that business does not want to hear. And by the way, this is even if Kamala Harris were in office, this would be a very delicate moment economically. We are 6 years overdue for a recession if you discount the COVID blip, which I would because of the pandemic. This is not a time to be playing fast and loose.
I take back everything I've said. The lady that was talking says she's talked to a builder. So she's obviously done her research, I'm convinced. What do I always say from the Democrats? Anecdotes. Is there anything wrong with the Trump administration saying this? The current state of international trade is massively tilted against the U.S.,
How about we make it fair for everybody? That's the goal. We're getting screwed in almost every trade deal we have right now. At one point, they were talking about Donald Trump not having a industrialization policy, but that's just not true. He's encouraging and incentivizing businesses to make products in the United States. He's pushing for energy independence, which, by the way, we had under his last presidency. I don't know why we would have ever given that up. Well, oh yeah, the Green New Deal and all Biden's commitments to them getting him elected. And I see energy independence as a huge priority, especially what's going on with Canada. I'll wrap up with this really quickly. The United States government has allowed this trade imbalance due to economic self-interest, corporate lobbying, and a failed diplomatic strategy. However, now there is a growing push to level the playing field through tariffs, supply chain restructuring, restrictions on Chinese companies operating in the U.S. That's a huge one too. Anyway, this is just like the Doge stuff. If Donald Trump's administration does not do this now and do it aggressively, it will never get done, and these problems will just continue to get worse and will continue to be the world's trading doormat. But I'm curious to hear what you all think about Trump's tariffs, because Scott Jennings made a good point, because there is disagreement within the party about whether these are a good tool or a bad tool. Let me know what you think of the